In this week's tick list, we are not in Nick Brown's kitchen because our filmmaker and editor has had a baby. So instead, we're at the depot in Sheffield. We're going to talk about Pietro Vidi's outrageous week in the Peak District. Perhaps the most outrageous thing about his tick list is that it would be an impressive tick list for anyone within their entire life, let alone a season, let alone 1 week. But for those of you who haven't heard of the 22-year-old Italian, you should have, because he has already amassed an incredible list of both boulder problems and routes, including the likes of Fuck the System and Permanent Midnight Low, both coming in at font 8C+, and the massively highball Ambrosia in Bishop, which comes in at V11. On a significantly bigger scale, Pietro made the second ascent of Beth Rodden and Tommy Caldwell's route Lurking Fear on El Capitan, which was put up in the year 2000 and waited over 2 decades for a repeat ascent. He also repeated Tribe, Jacopo Larcher's trad route that supposedly comes in around French 9A. And last but by no means least, he repeated Charles Albert's 9A, L'Ombre de Voyageur, which he reckoned came in at around about 8B+ when you are using things like climbing shoes and knee pads. Anyway, on to the Gritstone. Here is the full list of routes and boulder problems that he did whilst he was here in the UK. Appointment with Death at E96C, The Groove, E97B, Dynamics of Change, E97A, Meshuga, E96C, The End of the Affair, E86C, Gaia, E86C, Grandad Slab, E86C, Balance It Is, E76C, Flash, Unfamiliar, E76C, Braille Trail, E76C, Samson, 8A, Flash, and Careless Torque, 8A. Now that is a truly absurd list of routes, but it only gets more outrageous when you hear the stories behind some of the ascents, such as after climbing Dynamics of Change, he then went on to Flash, Balance It Is, an E7 in its own right, and Flash Samson, the 8A. And when you hear the stories further about him chatting his way up Samson, you realise that this guy is something seriously special. For context, when Samson was first put up by Jerry Moffat, it was one of the hardest routes in the world. And when it was highballed and featured in the film Life on Hold by Ned Feely, it was groundbreaking within that approach. And now we've got kids coming along in Flash gear. But this just goes to show how much times have changed, and seemingly highballing font 8As is just the norm. And now that there's font 9A, font 8A is no longer as difficult as it once was. The other story that deserves to be told is his ascent of the Groove. Now it was a marginal conditions day, so he decided to go out and have a look on his own, and Sam Pratt, the photographer, had decided not to join him and instead go to the climbing works, when he eventually received a message to say that Pietro had indeed done it. Now, he'd done it the way that Kevin Jorgensen did it on the infamous Team America trip. But Sam Pratt needn't worry, because Pietro was willing to do it again, but this time using James Pearson's original line. So he effectively did the route twice, once using Kevin's sequence and the other using James's original line. Now, it's also worth mentioning that the week he was over wasn't a stellar Gritstone week. It was kind of a tail end of summer or early autumn. It's not that winter, the cool, crisp days that give you the best friction. And it'll be interesting to see whether he comes back for the likes of, say, Equilibrium, Neil Bentley's E10, or Baron Greenback, Pete Whitaker's ultimate test piece.